Welcome to the bonus content for the Focus on Rehab External Focus podcast episode. In this bonus content, what we'll go over is just a couple of examples of how to use external focus cueing on some simple exercises that we commonly use. We'll do some kind of basic ones on the table to show that early phase of rehab. We'll do some standing up for that kind of mid to late, and then we'll do one for a late rehab stage, just to give a couple of examples of how easy it is just to change a couple words in the instructions to help cue for an external focus. So this first exercise is something that's done on the table, right? It can be used very early on in some rehabs, and it can also be applied to like a quad set for early phase ACL rehab, right? In this case, we have the foam roller, so it's a little bit harder than an actual bolster where there's actually some give. So we're going to kind of use that as the example. In this case, right, it's just a normal terminal knee extension, or in the case of a quad set, right, you're trying to bring your knee down towards the table, right? Normally, that's sometimes what the cueing would be. Hey, bring your knee down to a table. In this case, go ahead and extend your leg, bring your knee down towards the table. We'll go with your left leg, all right? That's what we're going for. Go ahead and relax. But in the case of trying to make this an external focus cue, there are a couple things you can do. And one is as easy as just be like, go ahead and lift your shoe as high as you can. There you go, right? So that's external because we're focusing on the shoe, not so much the foot. In the case of focusing maybe on the knee aspect or forcing the knee down to the table, what you could say is try and push down the bolster as much as you can. Go ahead and push down the bolster as much as you can. So that now shifts the focus on I'm trying to adjust the bolster as opposed to I'm trying to move my knee. So this next exercise, this is again kind of one that's a little more advanced, right? We're getting them standing, they're going to be single leg, a little bit more resistance, right? So in this case, what we're going to be trying to do is one leg's going to be stationary, the other leg's going to be doing the movement. You can either do it to the side, or I like to always go back in an angle depending on what I'm trying to focus on. In this case, right, the idea is we're trying to prevent some knee valgus, right? The band's going to be pulling against her. Her job is to keep that knee stable. All right, so instead of saying, okay, focus on keeping your knee, stable or keeping your knee aligned over your toes, what I like to do is I like to use the band as the cue and tell them to fight against that band. So when they're going here, right, their body, the stabilizing leg, has to focus on fighting against the band to keep stable, right? So if they actually, while they're doing the exercise, their knee does go in, I always like to give them a hard time, say, oh, you let the band win, don't let the band win. And we'll kind of go over that cueing again. All right, this last example is something, right, obviously way later in the rehab, it's going to be a lot more functional. Now we're trying to address their power, definitely a more functional exercise. One that can be commonly used is the vertical jump. There's a lot of different cueing that you can do for a vertical jump. So, right, most time you think of the vertical jump, right, you're here, arms up, bend, knees, all that stuff, right, that's very internally focused. But what we want to try and do to make it external, there's a couple of different wording you can use. One is just as simple as push off the ground as much as you can. So go ahead and push off the ground as much as you can. All right, perfect. Another one, which, there were two really great articles that gave some good examples that, I've implemented into my practice, but one that really cracked me up is pretend you're a rocket about to launch.
Okay.
Pretend you're a rocket about to launch. See, just like that. And that is another good thing with external cues is it could be really big into analogies as well. And that can definitely help make it easier. So if you really don't know how do I really implement this? How can I just change a couple words? Analogies also help with creating that external focus. Another thing too is like, hey, if there's some of the mechanics off in their vertical jump that can help, right? Breaking it down into the movement as well, right? A part of the vertical jump is a squat. So maybe they're just doing this and jumping up, right? Okay, well, you need to pretend like you're sitting back in a chair. That can also help as well.
Or if you're trying to get that range of motion, maybe something closer to the floor and then pushing the ceiling away. Something that integrates like both sides.
Absolutely. So hopefully this bonus content gives you a couple ideas of how to implement external focus into your cueing for your rehab exercises. It's as simple as just changing a few words, so hopefully it's not too difficult to implement. I know sometimes for me too, I get caught in, it's almost easier just to do an implicit or an internal cueing, just because we're very anatomical, so it's a lot easier and you do see instant results sometimes. but the long-term gain of an external cueing is by far better. So just start off small, just try to start implementing it in a few exercises and go from there.
And just a reminder that everything that we talk about on the podcast is always, you have to individualize it to your patient. So if these external cues aren't working, maybe you do try those internal cues. And maybe just because the research is saying that this is better overall, there is a time and place that you need to use those internal cues.
Absolutely.